Hey, welcome back, everybody. Once again, this is Mark Lawrence, and we're going against the spread here on Proline TV with our Against the Spread podcast. And as usual, our usual suspects are our cast of experts. Joining us today on the show, Jim Feist from Las Vegas. Jim, how are you doing these days?
I'm doing wonderful, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing just terrific. I really admire what you're going through, and I really admire your positiveness. And I really tell Roz, I love what you guys are doing. It's just super, super nice. If you want to share it, feel free. If not, no problem, none whatsoever. But I love
Well,
what you guys are doing.
what Mark's talking about is I was diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer in September. And instead of boohooing about it, I'm just doing what the doctors told me to do, take my medicine. And then I did ask the doctor what I can do for myself. And he told me that you should work out as often as you can with as heavy weights as you can possibly lift. And 3 or 4 days a week, I do that. But in addition to that, I wanted to leave a legacy and try to help people that don't get the same kind of physicians working with them as I'm privileged to get, and may get in a depressed state when they get something like this. And I wanted to do something to motivate them and keep them on, positive track. And I've been a pretty positive guy. I don't see negative much. I'm mostly think positive things, even when things aren't so positive. So, I feel pretty good on your off days when you take ADT therapy, which is hormone suppressant. You feel like crap. But if you work out hard, it seems to boost your own levels of hormones on a natural basis. I don't know how it works. I'm not a scientist.
Endorphins, does it boost your endorphins, Jim?
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah. But when I go there, I may feel down. I mean, most of the time I push myself to go. I don't, I'm not really enthusiastic about it, but I know when I'm going to get there, an hour and a half later, I'm going to feel much better. So I do it, and it really has helped my quality of life. And because the drugs are mean, they're nasty. But try to put these videos out. I've been putting them out on TikTok, and Mark suggested I put them out on Instagram. I'll try to do that too. And I guess I could put them out on YouTube as well, but I'd have to talk to Mark about that because I really, maybe if not Mark, but Greg, and see if he thinks we should do that too. But they're positive. I get hundreds every day, hundreds of comments about people and their problems. And, I'm not a doctor. I don't give out medical advice, but positive thoughts and prayers. And there's so many people in such terrible situations. It's horrible.
Jim, what's your TikTok address for our listeners out there that may not know it and want to choose to watch the TikTok videos?
I think it's my name, just Jim Feist. I think that's
Jim Feist at TikTok. Okay.
Yeah, I believe that's it. Greg, do you know what it is? Is that it?
I can find it. Yeah.
Okay. I think it's Jim Feist. That's I don't think it's anything special. Maybe Jim Feist Sports or something. Maybe. Yeah, and I think we've done probably, I don't know, 20 a month. Maybe we've got 60 of them out there, and
It's
I haven't done the
Jim
couple.
Feist Sports.
Okay, Jim Feist Sports. Yeah, and I do it because I'm really got over 1,000 followers now. Yeah, there's 1,318 followers right now, and one of the videos did 33,000 views. So we're trying to get as many people to tap into it, and they write their comments and what their problems are and the people they've lost in their lives. And cancer is a bitch, and you get that word, and doctor says, "Oh, you have cancer," and it's metastasized, which is stage 4, and that doesn't make you feel good. It's a kick in the stomach, and a lot of people get really depressed. I don't. I don't know. I'm not built that way, but a lot of people get depressed. I'm trying to lift them up, and basically, I said to my wife when we started doing this, I just want to leave a legacy of, behind that I've helped all these people that I can. And right now it's working So I'm going to continue to do that as much as I can. And now that football's over, I'll be able to do more.
Well, you're doing a terrific job, and tell Roz to keep up the great work as well. And
Thank
you're
you.
doing just that. You're not only picking people's spirits up, you're picking yours up as well, even though you don't realize that you are. And it shows. It's really good.
Thank you very much.
Andy Isco, also from Las Vegas. Andy, are you all ready for the Super Bowl on Sunday?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that Jim's positive state of mind. I think the studies have shown that positivity does have positive physical impacts on the body. So it's we don't understand how or why it works, but it seems to work that way. So Jim, you're to be congratulated and greatly admired for what you are doing, because it'll benefit so many people to interact with someone who's going through something that a lot of people have, but don't have any other resources to deal with it in a positive way. Let's say that. Mark, as far as your question is, yes, I'm pretty much all set for the Super Bowl. Just reviewing some additional props and things. I've made my my decision on the game and taking care of some of that, but looking forward to it happening. And we're 96 hours away, 48 hours away, 72 hours.
It's going to be here and gone.
72.
Bad Bunny will have performed, whether we like it or not.
I've never heard about Bad Bunny, and now I've heard it like 1,000 times a day.
You're going to hear a lot more coming too. Greg DePalma, Prime Sports Network. Are you all set for the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I'm all set. I can't wait for it to be over. This past couple of weeks, week and a half, it's getting a little ridiculous. I think part of it's because we don't have the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, and we don't have like that marquee matchup, and so everybody wants to talk. All you're hearing now in the past week and a half is all about politics and bullshit, and nobody wants to talk about the game. I don't think anybody's excited about the game. Maybe they'll give us a good game. I'm not sure that's going to be the case, but this is unfortunately the direction that the league has been going in, and I'm a little bit concerned with that. But we've talked about that every year when we do our preseason preview shows. The league is as a product has not really been going on the trajectory that we would like. But hey, you know what? If you're a Patriot fan, a Seattle fan, you don't care about all that. Your team's in the Super Bowl, and that's all that should matter.
Greg, along those lines, I'd like to, we just had Indiana, who's not a football school, win the national championship. And that got a lot of attention. And of course, a lot of the people say, well, that's going to happen more and more because of the nil in the portal. But that's not the case in NFL. But now we have two teams in there that nobody expected to be there this year. And all of you fellas that can answer this, if you want to, all the teams that we thought were going to be there, I don't think anybody projected it would be the Patriots or Seattle.
No, they did it, and they were long odds themselves to begin with. In fact, I have some Super Bowl notes that I'm going to go over with everybody before we break down the games.
I'll just interrupt for a moment more. The Patriots are clearly a long shot, but remember, Seattle was a 10-7 team last year that could have made the playoffs under a first-year coach. So I was surprised that their odds were as steep as they were.
As cheap as they were, you said, Andy?
As steep.
Steep, okay, yes, yeah. I agree.
Maybe because they were in that tough division and nobody thought they'd get out of that division.
And you also had a quarterback who had a little bit of a rough year last year as well, who really turned it around this year. We'll talk about that here a little bit more in depth.
No. Darnold had a great year, except for
that's right. And he was traded to this team.
I wonder how Tennessee feels about getting rid of Vrabel and Minnesota feels about getting rid of Darnold. I mean, they're two terrible mistakes.
Well, Minnesota showed what it felt by firing its GM.
Yeah, and the whole Vrabel thing, that I don't think that was as much as getting rid of Vrabel. Vrabel didn't want to be there anymore either. It was a power struggle.
I think a lot of it had to do with the owner's displeasure that on the bye week, Vrabel went up to New England to be honored. And that did not sit well with ownership, even though the Titans were not playing that week.
Well, Vrabel went there from Cleveland, not directly from Tennessee.
Right.
Because
I'm saying he left. That's why he got rid of him in Tennessee.
Right. He was an assistant on the sideline in Cleveland.
I don't think we were allowed
by
to
Jimmy Haslam to let him go. I'm sorry,
Mark, I don't think we were allowed to mention Cleveland anymore.
Well, it's a special Super Bowl show, Jim.
And it may be
Cleveland
as
and Super
close
Bowl
as we
never
talk
go
about
together,
Cleveland
so.
during the Super Bowl. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mark and I have a connection to Cleveland for different reasons, but it's kind of a sad story. So
It all involves the Browns and snow and maybe a couple of medical things, but nonetheless, we do.
I
Well,
do send Mark pictures of snow all the time from Cleveland.
Oh, and I look so forward to seeing all that snow there, Jim.
I don't live in Cleveland, but I have family that live there and send me the pictures, so I forward them on to Mark.
Mark, did
Well,
you
that
get
makes
hit
my
with that cold temperatures down in Florida for a good part of the weekend?
Temperature down here for the weekend is going to be probably in the
No,
70s.
last weekend when we started.
Oh,
seeing,
last
like,
weekend I was telling
crazy
Jim before the
temperatures.
show, we had to bring the flowers in there. Everything we were as low as like 30 degrees down here.
Wow.
Yep. If moisture had been in the air, it would have been snow. So it was really, Tampa Bay was 28 degrees. So
Wow.
it kind of
Wow.
got chilly, you know.
That kills the fruit and all the other
Citrus
stuff.
fruits, yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and this might be the beginning of each year with the Super Bowl. Now, I think this is going to giving other teams the hope that they can make these types of runs. When you limit the league now with really star quarterbacks, I think they showed. I looked at a stat that showed that, I think it was like 10 years ago, they had about, I don't know, there's like 15 quarterbacks in the NFL, or 16 had averaged over 250 yards passing per game, and now it's down to like 5.
No, really?
Yeah. And so it's the star quarterbacks, and when you don't have enough star quarterbacks, then it's up to the teams, the rest of the teams. And if your star quarterbacks like Mahomes and Allen and Burrow are, whether they're injured or their teams aren't playing well, or there's injuries on their teams and they can't compete in the postseason the way they normally could, this opens up. And now we don't have the star quarterbacks anymore. We've got a second-year quarterback who actually hasn't done anything in the postseason. And we have Sam Darnold, who has finally been able to take that next step, which is great to see. Nobody wants to see quarterbacks perform well better than I do. I don't care who they are. I don't care if they're former Jets. I'm happy this good quarterback play is good for the league. And
I was going to say, to that point, Greg, take a look at all the coaches who are up for Coach of the Year this year. Johnson in Chicago, Vrabel in New England. You got Liam Cohn in Jacksonville. You got McDonald in Seattle. You've got, I think McVay is there. Well, I'm going to put him aside because he's a veteran coach. But all these other coaches, they come in and they've turned these programs around. I imagine, Mark, that you're probably going to be against New England next year because their 14 wins this year was more than double what they had, or actually more than triple of what they had each of the last 2 years. And we've seen what Jacksonville did as far as turnarounds go. And I think that's good for the league. And I think it does give hope to some teams that if they make the right hires and they have astute general managers, they can turn things around very quickly. I mean, to see what New England, Chicago, and Jacksonville did this year from where they were last year, it's extraordinary that you had 3 teams showing such great turnarounds. I don't know if there's ever been a team that improved more than the Patriots did by winning 10 more games this year than they did last year.
Yeah, number one most improved team, obviously, in the NFL this year. And Andy, the point you make about fading teams that went from nowhere to everywhere from one season is a really, really strong handicapping tool. And basically, New England, they were a 4-win team back-to-back years, and yet they won 14 regular season games this year. Simply put, if you don't remember anything from the show, just remember that whenever New England comes favored next year, it's a play against situation under the context of those rules, because they really don't play up to the same level the following year after they've had this out of nowhere monster type year, which they've had this football season here.
At some point, Mark, you're going to have to tell us who you think is going to be the angel from next year, going from 4 wins to the Super Bowl. Will that happen again?
Well, here's what we're going to do, Jim. Glad you brought that up, because I got an email from one of our listeners, and he said, how about a show that focuses on how you all became handicappers and what angles you find yourself leaning on, maybe some questions from the audience about hedging, protecting your bankroll, and how to create a system, or knowing when to abandon a system. And he said, we'd love to hear it for Super Bowl week or the week after. So what we're going to do is next week after the Super Bowl, we'll wrap up the Super Bowl, but we'll also answer these questions.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, about our attachment to this game, our attraction, I should say, to this game, how we got here, and we'll answer those questions directly. So that was a really, really good email. I'm glad it came across. I
will give one answer that I think applies to all of us.
Yes.
A lot of it stems from our tremendous love of sports in general when we were growing up.
No question about it. In fact, just because you brought it up, Andy, people have often asked me, how did I get in this business? And I told them that when I was in high school in study hall, I used to read the Gold Sheet.
Yep.
And I got hooked in this hook, line, and sinker into sports handicapping in high school, reading the Gold Sheet. And just coincidentally, Mort Olson was just inducted into the Sports Gambling Hall of Fame. And I think that was well deserved. Mort Olson is really a pioneer in this business. And
without a doubt.
Yeah, he would be the equivalent of the NFL's contributors to the game.
Yes, he sure would. He reminds me like maybe in his own way, like Steve Sable from NFL Films for what he did for the NFL and things like that. But I just thought I'd throw that out there. I want to remind everybody that you are listening to the Proline TV channel. Click on the join button and you'll find picks from Jim Feist and myself, along with a bundle of picks from our team of experts, Greg DePalma, Andy Isco. Visit the community page and sign up. You'll get picks galore from us at a price that you're not going to believe. Before we get into the Super Bowl, guys, I want to set the table, if I can, here with a couple of Super Bowl notes, one of which I'm going to close off with, and I'm going to knock everybody's socks off with, because I'm going to hand it off to Andy Isco as I wrap this up to get a little bit of a follow-up on this. But just setting the table here, Jim was talking about, how teams have ever done these types of things and so forth and whatnot. Well, never have two Super Bowl teams with preseason odds of more than 50-1 have met in the Super Bowl at the same time. That's the shock or the surprise of this particular Super Bowl. This is only the 10th rematch of Super Bowl teams in the history of the Super Bowl. The other 9 rematches saw the avenging team, which would be Seattle this year, to go 6-3 to the spread and 2-9 to the under. They play to an average of 41.4 points per game. Super Bowl rematches have. In the regular season, Seattle was 6-1 straight up and against the spread against other playoff teams, 8-1 straight up and against the spread throughout the playoffs. New England was 2-2 straight up and against the spread against other playoff teams, 5-2 overall, 4-3 coming into the Super Bowl. Sam Darnold, really unbelievable. This little snippet note I got from my database, 5-11 straight up into the spread in his career against AFC East teams, including 0-4 straight up in ATS all time against the Patriots. Average loss by 23 points a game. But obviously he's a much better quarterback and a much better team this year. Mike Vrabel was the head coach for Tennessee for 6 seasons. He led that team to the playoffs 3 times, which really speaks to the credibility, I think, of Mike Vrabel taking Tennessee to the playoffs.
And a number 1 seed one year.
Yes, exactly right. Exactly. He took them to that AFC championship game, fell just a little bit short against the Chiefs. And in his career, 54-45 all time with Tennessee. That's not a bad number, and 2 out of 5 wins in the preseason. Since he's gone to Tennessee, amazingly, the Titans have gone 6-28 since he left. And this is one of the neatest notes that I've came across. 6-28 Tennessee's without Vrabel, but New England has won more games since December than the Titans have won since firing Mike Vrabel. In that short little span. So it just shows you the importance of what coaching can mean to football teams and getting into a Super Bowl. So let's see what jumps out from our Proline TV experts on the Super Bowl this year. Andy mentioned in his brilliant newsletter, and I got to say this, if you guys haven't seen Andy Isco's Logical Approach football newsletter, you need to drop everything you're doing right now and get a copy of this. It is 1,800 words on the Super Bowl, and every one of them are riveting. They're fascinating, all the work that Andy's put into his newsletter. And he begins it all by saying that this is a chance for history and a chance for redemption of sorts for both football teams. That's sort of how he lays the script all out. But let's dig a little bit deeper in the game and check out what our experts are going to be wagering on. We're going to close it out with props. We're going to start for the game itself. We're going to close it out with props. The props come from the godfather of all props, Jay Cornegay, who really put props on the map in his days with the Superbook and also at Imperial Palace. He did a terrific job doing just that. But we'll save the props for the end of the show and we come in and do just that. So let's get into the Super Bowl game itself. And before we do, let me go around the table here. Andy, because you mentioned your newsletter first, I got to ask you how much sleep you got putting that newsletter together here, man. It took me like 2 days to get through it. And I almost didn't.
By the way, it was 15,000 words, not 1,500.
I thought I said 8,000.
No, or maybe 8,000. It was 15,104 because I did the word count on it.
Oh
No.
boy, I thought I ran it through for 8,000.
And I mentioned that so that if people read it, don't be surprised if there's a typo in there somewhere, but hopefully nothing significant.
Well, shame on you, Andy, if there's a typo in there for 15,000 words. My goodness. So we can elaborate and do all these things about what you wrote in your Super Bowl preview, but we're going to talk all about that on the show here today. And let's put the season in review for what we saw this year just to get here. And I'm going to ask you, Andy, what was the number one thing you learned this season that was the most surprising to you that you're going to take into the 2026 season in the NFL?
Well, of course, one of the things I'm going to take into the next season will be, let's see if teams like Baltimore and Kansas City can bounce back from disappointing seasons, especially Kansas City. It's an aging team. It's one more year down the road of the career for those players. But I guess in a sense, it's a little bit of an advantage because of all the playoff games they've played since 2019. They didn't play any this year. So maybe they won't suffer the natural effects of playing those extra games every year. I think one thing that I did learn this year is that we continue to have turnover in the teams that make the playoffs. I think it's 5 or 6 teams from last year's playoffs that didn't make it this year. We'll see what happens as far as I'll be curious about teams like Buffalo with their coaching change. And I think we all admitted in one form or another that the window is closing on Buffalo. Now the question is, has that window closed? Or is there still a little bit of an opening, and maybe the new coaching staff? Well, it's not all that new because you promoted Brady, the offensive coordinator, who works very well with Josh Allen. Can they make some adjustments to the defense? And of course, injuries were always a factor. In fact, someone confirmed for me what I thought, and that is, if you take a look most years at the teams that lost the 10 teams that lost the fewest number of starts over the course of the season, 6 or 7 of them will make the playoffs. That's how important avoiding injuries is. And of course, avoiding injuries is really something beyond your control. But I think that the improvement of the teams that we saw this year, like I mentioned before, the Jacksonvilles, the Patriots, even teams that played well later in the year, like New Orleans had a nice run down the stretch. Atlanta had a nice run down the stretch. I'm looking forward to seeing which of those teams, and of course, we know now who everybody's going to play at home and on the road next year, because that's predetermined based upon the standings. The schedule won't come out as far as the sequencing of the games, which is very important. That'll come out in May. So I'm going to be taking a hard look at the teams that figure to be in that, let's say, 40 or 35 to 80 to 1 range as far as teams that have a real chance to make the playoffs based upon what we saw them do this year, how improved they were. I also like to take a look at how teams perform over the second half of the season compared to the first half when they have a new coach in place, and that applied to a few teams this year.
Thoughts from Andy Iskoe about the 2026 NFL football season. Greg DePalma, I haven't visited with you here. Your thoughts on what you saw this 2026 football season?
The thing that probably sticks out to me the most, and I know we probably should have seen it coming with Ben Johnson and the Lions and Dan Campbell, the way that they just always went for it on fourth down, and we're not kicking field goals, we're trying to score touchdowns and analytics and all that stuff. I think it was still surprising how many coaches just went for it, including at their own 30 on 4th and 1. Or 4th and 2 in some circumstances. And it culminated with, in a really bad way, with Sean Payton's decision to go for it on 4th down instead of taking a 10-0 lead. I hope that's not where the game's going. I think there's reasons to do it, and I get it, but that's the one thing that it's part of the game that I was just really surprised about how many coaches now in the NFL are starting to just go for it more on fourth downs. It's almost getting to the point now where if you get to a certain point of the field, it used to be you had to get like inside the 40. And then, all right, maybe I'd say more than 50% of the time you would think that you're going to go for it. Now it's like, well, as long as you get inside the 50, if it's fourth down, everybody's going for it. And I don't know. I just don't know if that's good for the game. I guess it's exciting, but it can be bad for the game if you wind up going for it when you shouldn't, like Sean Payton did.
Well, I agree a lot with what you say, Greg. And it seemed to be that, to me, I don't know if it was just me watching it, but the games, when I was watching them late in the second half, these teams were right around midfield. Instantly, the thought of kicking a field goal was in the coach's mind, because maybe they're kicking 65 yards, 66, 64. But it's not beyond comprehension for the majority of kickers in the National Football League, as we see today. Long field goals set up for more scoring opportunities. Jim, let me ask you this question. I know at the beginning of the season, you, like I, were real strong LA Rams fans. Were you surprised that the Rams lost out to Seattle to make it to the Super Bowl, or was it just the fact that the better team won?
I don't know that they're the better team, except maybe on special teams, and the addition of Shaheed to Seattle made a big difference in their season. I think that's probably the only. I mean, Stafford. I think all of us are going to pick Stafford over just about any quarterback at this point. He's a great, and McVay also. But that one area can cost you, and it did. The thing about, no, I'm not surprised, because they're close. Anytime that you get close, things can happen. And they played 3 games, and the second game they were way down, and Seattle came back. And this game, overtime, they were back and forth, and it's just who had the ball last almost. That was just a toss-up. I think that was the Super Bowl, in my opinion. As far as the 2 best teams remaining out of the last 4, I think those 2 teams are the better teams. Not taking anything away from Denver or the Patriots, but Denver, of course, is playing without the quarterback. Mentioning Sean Payton's decision on the going for it, I think was absolutely insane. Not just because it was the decision to go for it, but it would put them up 2 scores in a bad weather situation. And you're going for it with a quarterback that hasn't played in 3 years, for God's sake. So, it just made no sense. I'm sure he's going to have to live that down, just like Pete Carroll had to live down the not running
Marshawn Lynch.
The Super Bowl and giving, it's just some of these decisions are, as far as analytics.
By the way, excuse me for a moment, Sean Payton also has a distinction of maybe making one of the worst postseason decisions with not going for the 3 points. He also made the best decision ever in the Super Bowl, going for that onside kick when down at halftime.
True. If you keep gambling, every once in a while you're going to win.
Yeah.
And every once in a while you're going to lose.
That's that acorn theory. Yes. Right.
Yeah. Where was I going? I forgot what I was going somewhere.
We were talking about Sean Payton and the mistakes that he made,
that Seattle Rams game was the real Super Bowl.
Yeah. So Seattle Rams. I asked you to begin the segment here. Were you surprised? And I think you said not really, or disappointed.
No, because I think they were the 2 teams, the 2 best teams. Not taking anything away from the AFC, but the AFC really, as we looked at them throughout the year, most of us never thought they were as good as the NFC anyway.
I think the NFC was always 1 to 2.5 point favorites for the unknown Super Bowl matchup that you can bet on throughout the regular season. NFC anywhere from -1 to 2.5.
I think the line on this Super Bowl is too high. I don't think Seattle deserves to be a 5-point favorite in this game. I do think they deserve to be a favorite, but not that number. And that's why I bet Seattle on the money line, and I do that a lot. I don't usually chase it up to 5, but I'm not going to lay 5 points. I'm just not, this is like only game in town. You got to play it. And you got to have all the props and all that other stuff. But this was and am I answering the question about the surprise of what I saw this year? Well, I think that issue was, I think that we're looking at a league that's going through a transition. Our offensive line play has been pretty poor overall throughout the year. The quarterback play has been, we've had a couple of good quarterbacks that are like Stafford is an excellent quarterback, of course. But most of the guys in the league are young and they're inexperienced. And some of the coaches are young and inexperienced, or at least moved around to new teams. So we're kind of looking at a B league. Not an A league. I don't think there's any team in the NFL that you would call an A or an A+ team. So you're going to get surprises, and you're going to have a lot of there's so many games this year where the team is ahead by a lot and then loses the game. I mean, it's just that was kind of because we're dealing with if you were talking about horse racing, these would be claiming races. The games would be on the level of a claiming race instead of a stake race or a Kentucky Derby or a Belmont or anything like that at the higher levels. We're dealing with lower level or middle level claiming races, and the quality of these teams, they're not all put together. They all have holes and flaws. These two teams are pretty good. The coaches are pretty good. The quarterbacks are pretty good, but they're not great. And
they just have less holes and less flaws, right?
Yeah, it's great. It's great watching. I mean, these games have been exciting. A lot of drama and everything else. It just shows you can have great games. And like in basketball or football, the MAC, that's not the greatest league in the world, but they can be exciting games. And that's kind of what you have this year in the NFL. So the quality is a little bit less than we're used to 10 years ago when it was really quality stuff. And I mean, look at how many coaching changes we have this year, and look at how many new quarterbacks and et cetera, et cetera. If you had real quality, you wouldn't be seeing all that change.
I think if you take a look at whoever you say is the best team this year, let's say it's the Rams, let's say Seattle, probably no better than maybe 4th or 5th last season. That team would have been ranked somewhere. So that's, I think, a little bit to what Jim is saying. And by the way, I wanted to go back to that Seattle Rams game. Keep in mind, that game was 31-27 at the end of 3 quarters. Nobody scored in the 4th quarter of that championship game. And the Rams had several opportunities. And I wonder if things had been different if McVay, instead of going for it on that 4th down with about 5 minutes to go, which he didn't make on, I think it was the Seattle 6, if he goes for the field goal to make it 31-30, and then they hold, they had 3 timeouts left. Maybe they get a chance to kick a field goal to win instead of needing the touchdown down 4 when they only had like 2 plays left or something like that. It might have been a little bit different as far as the defense being able to make stops. By the way, as far as analytics go, I always say analytics are a guide. They're not the Bible.
That's the truth. And too many coaches take them to be the Bible. And that's a little bit of a fault, I guess, to the NFL and the coaches. Jim, you said something really interesting that caught my attention about that perhaps the Seattle Rams game was the Super Bowl to both of those teams. That being the case, if it was the Super Bowl to Seattle, is there any psychological letdown possibly in order for Seattle to be playing this game this week as opposed to what they got up for in the Rams?
Absolutely. No question about it. It's yeah, I mean, they feel like they climbed the mountain and they got to the mountain. Now they have to go out there and fight again against somebody that has nothing to lose. Absolutely. That's
a challenge for the coaching staff. One thing that may mitigate that somewhat is that extra time off, where the elation of beating the Rams and basically being the team to beat in the Super Bowl, that elation is probably worn off by now. But it's a challenge for the coaches.
But so too, Andy, could the momentum be worn off too from winning that football game? 2 weeks later, you're out there asking yourself to charge up again. I'm sorry.
You got to win a game that you kind of feel like, well, we won the Super Bowl last week. Why are we playing this? Yeah. And, and Vrabel, I'm really impressed with Vrabel. I mean, I think this guy is going to be an excellent, excellent coach down the road. I mean, this guy has done a lot of things, not only on the field, but off the field. He built a culture
Yeah.
rebuilt a culture in New England that was gone and sort of destroyed under the Belichick era, because Bill had to do everything and he was involved with everything, and he had a lot of yes men then. Well, he came in there and he got rid of all the yes men, and he took over. And what he's done there is remarkable. And I mean, four wins up to being in the Super Bowl is pretty remarkable. But not only that, it's the whole culture he built there. I think that's going to be a very dangerous franchise, and he's going to be a very dangerous coach to go against down the road. He's really, really good. Although
he has the respect and the admiration of his players who he can relate to and can relate to him, because he was such a good player during the heyday of the Patriots Super Bowl run.
True.
You know, what you guys are talking about here is sort of what, if I had asked myself the same question I asked you guys about what you take from this season, my take is the head coaches. And we're talking about what Mike Vrabel did to New England to get them here, what Liam Cohen did for Jacksonville to get them where they are, what Ben Johnson did for Chicago to get them where they are. Complete turnarounds for each and every one of those football teams. So it's so critically important that the proper head coaches are hired. We had I think 10 of them in the offseason here. I don't know if 10 for 10 are going to work out, but there's going to be a plum or two inside these 10 new head coaches.
And you get the marriage between the head coach, the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and sometimes a quarterback will go to the wrong and get in the wrong marriage, just like people do. I mean, in relationships, you marry the wrong person, that doesn't work out. Well, sometimes these quarterbacks are ruined by getting in a situation where they have the wrong coaches.
Look at Sam Darnold as a perfect example. Couldn't do anything with the Jets. Has an MVP type season with Minnesota last year, and a pretty comparable season this year. So yeah, my best example all the time, Steve Young, same quarterback, horrible in Tampa Bay with lousy coaching, goes to the Hall of Fame when he's with San Francisco.
Right.
Real good example there, Andy. Real good. Okay, guys. So I'm going to ask you here, because we're going to make the show a little bit shorter than we normally would want to, but I'm going to ask you, I'm going to call you right on. What side of this football game are you going to be betting on? Whether it's a total, whether it's the side itself, but Greg DePalma, what side are you going to in this Super Bowl?
Oh, this is, I felt this way on Sunday night of championship night, and my decision hasn't changed at all. I think this is going to be a blowout. I think Seattle should have been favored by 7 or 8. New England shouldn't be here. They were lucky to get here. They deserve everything they've gotten this season. But again, we didn't have to go through it. But, again, the schedule was weak. All the luck breaks they had in the postseason. The quarterback has done nothing in the postseason. And now they got to go up against one of the better defenses in the league with 2 weeks to prepare. They're not going to fluke their way through this game. There's no weather. And they're playing a team that, as Jim said, is really good on special teams. So I don't think they could steal anything on special teams either. So I think that this could be similar to what we saw last year, where it'll be over by halftime. But I don't know. We'll see. I mean, New England's had a charmed season. And when you have a charmed season, sometimes you find a way. But I just think Seattle's that much better than New England. And I don't think this is going to be close.
Well, Jim, you mentioned you've got your money line play on Seattle in the football game rather than laying the points. So
the game opened 3.5, and I thought it should be higher, but I don't like laying points. So my answer to that, and now it's up to 5, 4.5, 5. I even seen one place 5.5, and I heard of a 6 out there, but I never saw it. But yeah, I have a money line play on Seattle. I do think, and I agree with Greg, they have a better roster, equal at coach, more experienced quarterback. I'm not saying he's better than Drake May. I'm just saying he's been around longer. In the last 2 years, it's a remarkable record. And I think whatever ghosts he used to see, he's not seeing them anymore. No, I think this is a better team. Now, does that mean that they should be a 7-point favorite? No, I don't think so. I think it's closer than what Greg is saying. I don't think we're going to see a blowout. I would be very surprised. I think Vrabel is too good of a coach not to get them closer than that. I don't think they'll win the game. I think that Seattle's going to win the game, and that's why I'm on the favorite.
So if we had you locked up in a room, Jim, between the end of the playoffs and the Super Bowl, you couldn't make a wager, but now you can. Which side of this game are you wagering on without the money line? I know you're not going to do a money line to buy down from -6. It'd be rather expensive.
Yeah, but I took the money line at
3.5.
Right.
Right.
3.5. 3.5 was hard because it wasn't there very long. But the most of my money on the side is money line at 4.
So what do you do today?
Today?
Yeah.
I bet 20 props and I got the under. I have a lot of under 45.5.
There you go.
Mainly because I feel the game is going to start out slow, which first quarters are typically under because they're nervous and they're conservative play. And most of the time, the first halves are under. So I think what you got there is I'm going to play the game under, and I think by halftime it'll be a better game to bet over because the line will be so low. So I have a game under, a first half under, and a first quarter under, and then I have 5 or 6, well, probably closer to 10 props in addition.
Well, look, Andy, I read your newsletter from start to finish, and I was a little bit surprised at the side you got to in the game, but you explained yourself why you got to the side in the game. And the reason I was surprised is because you had hit on last year, and it applied again this year. The team that has the better record is 1-17 against the spread the last 18
Well,
times.
that doesn't apply this year because they were both 14-3.
Yeah, and that's what you ironed out. The fact of the matter is, during the regular season, the team that had the better record. Because right now, New England has the better record. They played one more playoff game, so hence one more win for them. So you're looking at it from the regular season aspect.
Exactly. Yeah, because everything starts over in the playoffs. But I'm going to go back to Super Bowl 42, which was the undefeated Patriots going up against the New York Giants, whom they had struggled to defeat in the final game of the regular season. And I remember calling for one of the biggest blowout wins in Super Bowl history because the Patriots were looking to become 19-0. And, of course, that's probably the worst Super Bowl prediction I ever made because the Patriots not only covered the 12.5-point spread, they won the game. Now, I'm going to ask you a question, Mark, since you said you read it page to page, from start to finish. Since the Patriots won that Super Bowl 42 over the Giants as a 12.5-point favorite, what's been the highest point spread since that game? There have been 17 Super Bowls since that game.
17 since that game?
What's been the highest point spread since that 12.5 point spread?
Are we looking at it this year?
Nope.
No.
However, it's close. It was actually the next year.
Okay.
When Pittsburgh and Arizona played, and if I remember, Pittsburgh was leading something like 20-7 going into the fourth quarter. And Arizona scored 16 points to take a 23-20 lead. And then Pittsburgh scored late to win the game 27-23. They were favored by 6.5, and the underdog covered without winning. And I use that sort of as a setup for the records of underdogs in the Super Bowl since that time. 6.5 has been the highest. Underdogs since that, including that game, starting with the Patriots upset. The Giants upset of the Patriots, 12-6 straight up, 14-4 against the spread of the underdogs. Now, what makes that significant, especially that 14-4 record and 12-6 straight up record, is that these point spreads have been so low. We have not had a spread above at or above a touchdown in the last 17 Super Bowls, and we don't have it again this year. Now, looking at the underdogs that won those 12 out of those 18 Super Bowls, 7 of those wins were by single digits. 5 of them were by 10 points or more. The 4 losses were by under 10, and 2 losses were by double digits. There have been 6 double-digit Super Bowl margins in those last 18 years. The underdog has the 4 largest double-digit margins as far as when they've won. What I'm saying is that, and I haven't been, people will say, well, you're going back 14-4, 18 years, you can't continue that up. Well, people were saying it, when it wasn't 14-4, when maybe it was 7-4 or 8-4. It's got to reverse itself. And yet it continues on. In fact, each of the last 4 years, the underdog has covered, winning 3 of those games outright. And the one that they covered and didn't win was that 3-point game between Cincinnati and the Rams. So I have a natural inclination to go towards the underdog in these games. And another thing is, and the game has changed over the 18 years, but things have remained pretty constant with these underdogs. Both New England and Seattle. Seattle played 2 games or their season is over. New England played 3 games or their season is over. Forget how they won, because the conditions for both teams were the same as far as the field goes. Injuries may have had a little bit of a difference, things like that, but they're basically playing under the same conditions. So both of these teams, you're not talking about a team that was maybe 10-7 and made it to the Super Bowl because of, they won on the road in the wild card games, etc. These teams were 14-3. They just demonstrated, even with the quality of opposition over the course of the season, that they're very good football teams. They're both deserving to be there. And one of the things that I do look at, because the quality of competition, the soft schedule played by the Patriots, is a huge factor for people who say it's going to be an easy game. Well, I did a little research. I know, Mark, you did the results against playoff teams this year. I'm
correct.
taking a look at the games against common foes. These 2 teams played 7 games against common opponents. They both played, all 4 teams, in the NFC South, in addition to Pittsburgh, Tennessee, and Houston. Both teams were 6-1 straight up, 5-2 against the spread in their games. I think it was Seattle lost at home to Tampa Bay, beat Pittsburgh on the road. New England lost to Pittsburgh at home, beat Tampa Bay on the road. Otherwise, they beat the other 5 teams. Interesting enough, those games combined to go 11-3 over the total against the common opponents. But the statistics of those games against the common opponents were remarkably close. Similar. Now, the scoring margin was a little bit different because Seattle had one big, I think, blowout game in there, or 2 maybe, that they had that New England was close, but still just about a 5-point difference. Total. Here are the numbers for the 7 games. I'm going to try and not do too much more than this, but average rushing yards gained, 121 versus 122. Average passing yards for 236 versus 223. This is the staggering statistic. Rushing yards allowed per game, 78 for Seattle, 77 for New England. Passing yards, 199 and 206. Turnover margin, -3, -2. Remarkably similar, which tells me that against a similar competition, these teams played almost identical games. And of course, the one thing that is really interesting, and the one that makes me lean a little bit towards the over in this game, even though I don't have a very strong opinion on it, is that the foes that these 2 teams played could not run the ball against either of them. And I'm wondering if that might not be a factor here, where both teams are going to have to rely more on the pass than they would like to.
Well, Andy, the stats you bring up sort of go to what Jim alluded to about he's surprised at this line being where it is this high. Yeah. When you weigh it on a scale against their body of work against other fellow common opponents,
yeah,
your case justifies that because they're practically dead even. All these stats are. What I'm going to share with everybody here is what I put in our super.
By the way, let me just add one thing to wrap up. I am on New England in this game.
Yes, I know.
Okay, I am on New England. I didn't mention it there. It's stronger than the opinion on the total. But the other thing to keep in mind is, and I don't know if it's worth anything. I don't think it was factored in the line. Seattle played on this field a month ago when they played the 49ers in that big game that determined the number 1 seed.
They did, and I ran that through the Super Bowl or through my database to find out what teams who play Super Bowl games in stadiums or venues where they played the division against, and it really truly wasn't a factor, none whatsoever. You would think it would be, the likelihood of Seattle being a little bit more familiar with Levi Stadium as opposed to the Patriots, but it really didn't hold up. And in fact, there haven't been all that many in the Super Bowl, to tell you the truth. I think there were 6 of them, 6 or 7. What I did do, though, was interesting. And the reason here's why I went to where I went. First of all, as you know, I publish the Midweek Alert, which is our statistical newsletter. And I live and die with teams with better offenses and better defenses that are underdogs against their opponents. Why do I do that? Because they win. Because if one fails, they can rely on the other. If the offense shuts down, they can rely on the defense. The defense busts, the offense takes its place, carries its weight. Surprisingly, in this football game, it's New England that owns the better offense and the better defense in this football game, and yet they're the dog. So what I did digging deeper was to say, okay, if that's the case, then let's look at all the Super Bowl games that have ever played, and let's look at how they performed throughout the course of the playoffs in points allowed. The teams that had the stingiest scoring defenses throughout the course of the playoffs. Well, since the playoffs began in 1966, there have been a total of 16 of these teams, and that allowed 10 or fewer points per game. That was the prerequisite. You allowed less than 10 points, single digits, throughout the course of the playoffs. There have been 16 of them. Those teams that did just that, they went 14-2 straight up and against the spread in the Super Bowl, meaning that it's very, very tough to penetrate a stingy scoring defense. And there's people that are going to go out there and poo-poo. They're going to say, "Oh, look at New England played, and they did this," and anybody would have done it against the type of schedule they did. But the fact of the matter is, nobody has. And in fact, this is the first time.
And by the way, you're talking playoffs.
Yes.
You're playing against the best teams in your conference.
Exactly right. Exactly. So maybe New England's playoff strength of schedule is a little bit lighter than perhaps Seattle's was. What does it matter? A playoff team is a playoff team. This is the first time this has happened since 2002, by the way. And in that course of that 14-2, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 wins and covers in a row by this team. That's what the box that New England checks and brings into this football game. I just wanted to share that with our listeners. If you didn't read the playbook,
let me share. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Go ahead. I want to share something.
I see if you didn't read the playoff Super Bowl guide, it's in there. But go ahead, Andy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to keep in mind that the Patriots in the Super Bowl and in the playoffs, they played three really good defenses: the Chargers, the Texans, and the Broncos. And yes, my major concern about New England is that they were that May was sacked 5 times in each of those 3 games. But they went up against 3 outstanding defenses. The defense that Seattle went up in their 2 games were the Rams, who hadn't had a good defense the second half of the season, and the 49ers. And again, injuries, whatever, it's still the team that's on the field. The 49ers, who was not a very strong defensive team as well. So what I'm getting to, and I don't know how much it's going to matter, New England is stepping down in class as far as the quality of the defense or the stats of the defense that they faced, whereas Seattle is stepping up in class as far as the defense that it's faced throughout the playoffs.
Good point. Yes, exactly. New England went up against that number 1 ranked defense of Houston's in doing all those sorts of things.
No, and they didn't do much, but they should have more success, or at least not any worse success against Seattle's defense.
All right, guys, let's wrap this edition of Against the Spread up here with props. Everybody loves the props. Our good buddy Jake Cornegay, the godfather of props, started it all back in his days when he was with the Imperial Palace. He moved over to the Superbook, and he opened up a can of worms that has taken over the world of gambling in football. In fact, I read somewhere that there people bet more money on props than they do the game itself. And I can understand that because a lot of people that bet the Super Bowl are novices. They might not be so keen to the game itself, the handicapping of the game, but they sure do love their props. They might be gimmicky props, but nonetheless, they do love their props. But the props we're talking about are the real props, the ones that you can only bet in the state of Nevada because the result has to take place on the field, not what color water comes out of the Kool-Aid or the Gatorade.
Or the length of the national anthem.
Exactly right. So that being the case, guys, let's go around the horn and talk about what your favorite props in the Super Bowl game will be. I've got a couple I like myself, but Greg, I'm going to start it off with you. Your favorite props that you're looking at in the Super Bowl this year?
Does that include MVP?
I believe MVP. I don't know. Is that decided on the field? Because no, the MVP of the game or the season.
That's voting. Yeah, that's voting.
Yeah, that's voting.
We could not bet. We could not bet that here in Nevada prior to Super Bowl 50. Then they finally came into the 21st century, or maybe even the 20th century, the Gaming Commission. And since then, we've been able to. In fact, I'll have a little comment about what one of. Well, I'll mention it now. That they give you a list of about 30. The Westgate does not have an option to bet the field, meaning somebody who's not on that list winning the MVP. Now, I don't know what it would have been, for example, in the first meeting between Seattle, but Malcolm Butler with that interception, and he had another great defensive play a few plays before. He could have won the MVP, but he was probably not on the list because he was a rookie. So I'm just wondering why they did not put the field in there as opposed to a number of the other places here in Vegas who do have the field, which is at 25-1. So I'm guessing that that for those people who bet it at Westgate and any other place that didn't list the field, I would imagine that you probably get a refund if the player that gets the MVP is not one of the listed because you couldn't bet it.
Wow, interesting. Very interesting.
Just for props, then I'm going to take pick 6 at 6-1
That there will be an interception return?
for a touchdown. 6 to
Okay.
1. Yeah, 6-1. That's what I'm taking.
So that's not defensive or special team touchdowns. That's specifically an interception return for a touchdown.
Correct.
I'm looking at a sheet to see if I can find. You did say 6-1 though, Greg, right?
Yeah, I'm looking at it from one of my sports books.
Okay, a good friend of mine, Ralph Michaels with Wager Talk, puts out an excellent Super Bowl props results from the last 16 years, and he's got an ongoing running win-loss total of a lot of these props. Like for instance, the one that was the hottest and had won the most was the team that scores last wins the Super Bowl, and it always started out at like -150, -160, because it was so popular and because it won 15 years in a row. That price became like -280 last year. Well, it lost last year. So now it's 15-1, the run that it's on. So, what do you do? Do you go back to where it was, or you see another prop or another trend is developing?
What's the price?
Well, again, it opens up this year at -160.
Oh,
Now,
that's not bad, Dan.
No,
So you
that's
said
what
it was
it opens up at.
-280 last year.
Those are the prices Jim Feist gets, okay? We're not privy to those, okay?
Okay. Yeah, -160 ain't bad, Dan. Yeah, I jump right back on that. That's still a trend. 15 out of 16.
Yep. 0-1 is the most recent, but not.
The MRT, yes.
Yes, MRT, exactly right. So, Jim, what are you going to look at? Are you looking? I know you mentioned props before because you're going to be handcuffed to the game. You're already cemented in the game because of your money line play early when the game opened up. So now you're going to turn to props in the Super Bowl. What are you going to turn to? Do you have any idea yet, or have you still scaling them out for value?
Some of the props. I mean, first half, first quarter, full game on totals. That because I played all three of those under. Holani, who replaced Charbonnet, I think will have a bigger role in this game because Walker is going to be a focus of the defense. And he didn't play too badly last week or 2 weeks ago. And I feel that his receiving yards and rushing yards combined will go over the number because I think he's a good player. He's not Charbonnet, of course, but usually when you have a replacement, and they're going to focus on Walker because Walker is so dangerous, although I think Walker will also go over his passing receptions yards because you're not going to run that well against the Patriots. Their defense against rushes are pretty tough. So there's two right there. I feel that you could easily have, and this is one I got from somebody else who bet $20,000 on this. Literally, I saw the tickets yesterday. That more than two players will throw a pass at +150. And it started out at +200, but then because he bet so much, they lowered the number down to 150. So that's more than two players will throw a pass. Very likely because you could have an injury and you have to have another quarterback. That's possible. Or they could have a trick play where you have
a gimmick play, right?
That hit last year, by the way.
150.
Pardon me?
It's only 150.
It was higher, but he bet so much money on it, they lowered the number.
It did hit last year, by the way, with Pickett.
Yeah. And his thinking is Cooper Kupp is going to be that player to throw the pass.
Former Super Bowl MVP.
He's actually pretty good at it, so they might use him. So we might have a play like that involved. And it could be a replacement quarterback if the quarterback gets banged up a little bit. So, or it could be, if it is a blowout, you could have a backup quarterback in there too. So those kind of things could happen. I think that the combined over for both teams, whatever the number is, over sacks. I think both quarterbacks will be sacked. I think that they're going to.
There was a big movement on that one at Westgate where it was 5.5. I think it opened -140 on the under. And now I believe it's about -120 on the over. So a lot of money has come in on the over. And which, by the way, means it could be in some places down to 4.5. They might make an adjustment if they saw that much money come in on the over. So it might actually, it may go up a little bit with all that over money.
The Vrabel's going to put a lot of pressure on Darnold, because the one thing that people say that Darnold is weaker under pressure. So, and of course, you're going to have a lot of pressure from Seattle as well on May. So of course, that also could release May for over his yardage rushing, and that's another play that I've made. Even though I'm saying he's going to be sacked, it will open channels for him to get some yardage when those plays are made. So over rushing for him, over sacks. There's quite a few plays there. Let's see. There's so many of them.
You don't have to give them all.
Okay. All right. I'll shut up. You might be here an hour.
All right, Andy, I'm going to put it on you, man.
I'm going to pick Y.A. Tittle as MVP.
Or just pick it that his name will be mentioned somewhere in the Super Bowl.
I'd like to see a prop on how many times they will show a replay of the Marshawn Lynch, Malcolm Butler play at the end of their.
Oh, you're going to see that for sure, huh? Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I was sick about that because I had Seattle in that game.
Seattle, yeah.
That made me very sick.
I'm going to take something from the end of my newsletter, Mark, because I think the listeners and the viewers might find it. What I call it key points to consider when playing props. Number one is to look for sports books that offer a 20-cent line as opposed to 30 or higher for basically evenly priced props. In other words, an evenly priced prop is -110, -110 each way. That's a 20-cent line. A 30-cent line would be, for example, -120 on one part, -110 on the other, 30-cent difference, or like a plus 120 and the minus is -150, 30-cent line. The other thing, or the next thing, is to be sure to read the fine print attached to a prop. For example, if you play over 3.5 Seattle players to score in the game, some places say that does not include scores made on a 2-point conversion. Other places will say it includes anytime someone scores a point, it counts. So you got to read the conditions as far as the props that you're playing, because if you see a different prop and or the same, what appears to be the same prop at two different books, and one is like mine is, let's say, +120 and there's +160, there may very well be a little disclaimer in there, a little asterisk there. The other thing is when you are evaluating, let's say, the player's individual rushing yards over and under, I do not look at the average during the season. I basically look at, okay, the number is 76.5. How many times in his 17 or 19 games now in Cleveland, how many times did he go over that number, and how many times did he stay under that number? Because the average could be guy gains 10, 10, 10, 10, 120, 10, 10, 10. The number may be, over under 50. And people will play the over because the average, when you average that all together, might be like 62.5. Okay. And they say, oh, well, I got to go over 50. Meanwhile, he's only gone over that 62.5 or whatever once. So be very important to do that. And you can sort of do the same thing with the medians. Now, as far as my approach to props, I normally look for plus prices, and I concentrate on props that have nothing to do with A, who I think is going to win the game, or B, how I think the game is going to be played as far as rushing and passing, because these are once a year type games, and a lot of things that these coaches haven't shown before they will show in this game. And for example, okay, and this one I think, and again, Ralph put out that outstanding sheet that you referenced, Mark. And one of the things that I play every year, it's been 8-8 over the last 16 years, and that is the team scoring first will lose the game. The way the team scoring first will win the game. The yes is a huge minus, usually over minus 200. The under is a plus. It's plus 145 this year that the team that scores first will not win the game. Well, not just that it's 8-8 over the last 16 years, but that all depends who gets the opening kickoff, what the field position is. The fact that one team scores first doesn't mean that they're going to end up winning the game. Now, last year, of course, the team that scored first did win the game because it was a rout. But I think it had been a few years before that it didn't occur. And as I say, 8-8. So that's a prop that should be closer to a pick'em, and yet you're getting almost plus 150 on that prop. Another such one, and Jim mentioned it, over 2.5 players to have a pass attempt. Again, I don't care which team does it, who has the extra one, but I'm giving the chance to, and especially both of these coaches have put in some aggressive play calls. That one, I didn't get the plus 200, but I did get plus 170 on that prop that it does occur. And a third one, that both teams lead in the first half. And that's plus 155. Again, it's early in the game. You could have a field goal followed by a touchdown, followed by a field goal, and all they have to do is have one lead change in the first half for that one to cash. The only other one that I played or the only one that I really played on a specific player is that I did take for Seattle Shaheed to score an anytime touchdown, which I think I got it around plus 380 or thereabouts. Again, considering his ability to return kicks and also his ability as a receiver. Was it JSN will get the double coverage for for Seattle, and that means that both Cooper Kupp and Raheem Shaheed will have some opportunities, and again, the kick return factor for Shaheed also, we know about their very good special teams, gives that another opportunity. So that's the one player-related prop that I have so far played. I don't know if I'll be playing anymore, but that was the one that jumped out to me as soon as Seattle was going to be one of the players in the Super Bowl, one of the teams.
And a good MVP pick too. He's 30-1.
Yes, yeah.
Because you can see this is the type of game that if it is very defensive,
and if it's a 13-10, 17-13 game, he could do it.
Yeah, one kick return can do it. Yep. So,
By the way, let me mention one other thing. If you're considering playing New England in the Super Bowl, you may want to consider splitting your play up three ways: money line, plus the points, and also Drake May for MVP. And you may even want to go with Drake May as the MVP rather than playing the money line, because the money line on Drake May MVP is like plus 250. The money line on the game is plus 200. Now, you could do the same thing for Seattle rather than lay, and Jim, of course, got that great price, but rather than lay the money line, and certainly rather than laying the points, maybe you play Darnold at plus 200, or no, I don't know, he's about plus 130 to win the MVP. So instead of laying the minus, it's probably about 220 right now or something like that, maybe you take a shot.
I laid 190 on it now.
Which was probably the best price that's been around. And I don't know where this game is going to go. I thought that it would end up flipping between 4 and 4.5. It looks like it's flipping between 4.5 and 5. And I would imagine a lot of the late money, Jim, you would have an idea of where a lot of the sharp money will be going. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to Seattle.
The show that I did yesterday, and the people that were in the audience, there really isn't a lot of, there's nobody that's really strong on the side, and which kind of like, there's a lot of question marks about each team, with the history and the pedigree of the coaches and the quarterbacks, because at this level, because this is the biggest game, and how much that will affect their decision making and playing. So nobody's really excited about a side. Money line Seattle is probably the most popular play at this point, but nothing outstanding.
What I ask people is, okay, the line right now is 4.5 or 5. Would you still be on Seattle if you had to lay 7? And that drops considerably. Yeah, well, you wouldn't do it if it was at 4. You're at 3.5. You got a great number. That probably got it a minute afterwards. But to your point about no strong opinion, I was undecided coming into this Super Bowl as to who I liked until I did a lot of the numbers and the research and everything to put those 16,000 words or whatever it is out there. But which is unlike last year, where I knew instantly I was going to be on Philadelphia over Kansas City. It's different every year. Some years it stands out to you. Some years you have to do some work, and some years you just say, you know what, maybe I can find a better route to cashing in on the Super Bowl with the props or with the total.
I think the edge in this game is in-game betting. I think we're going to see stuff out there. We're going to see what they're doing and how conservative.
That's becoming more of an edge in every game that offers inline betting now. In-game betting.
Well, that's sort of true too. Yeah.
Well, yeah, in-game betting, in-game props, in-game sides, right? Very popular. I'm going to share with you guys my look at some of these props. I'm not a big prop guy at all. I'll be the first to admit that. The one prop that I've liked the most the last 5 years, I've liked it the most because I've cashed 4 of the 5, 4 in a row, in fact. First play of the second half, will it be a run or a pass? And I bet the run. Okay, they'll run the ball. You get plus 110 on that. And my thinking is that they go to the locker room, the coaches make all their changes, whole new game plan for the second half. You come out the second half, you're going to want to establish your game plan. You're not going to want to have a quarterback drop back and get picked the first time that you're trying to do that, and all of a sudden everything is blown up to smithereens. I do like the first play in the second half to be a run. Here's something interesting. I don't know what a price is. Maybe Jim or Andy, you guys might know. But it's the way I'm thinking here. Since the National Football League has redid their kickoffs, the ridiculous way they kick the football off now. The one good thing from all of this is that since they did that, I was reading that almost 75%, I think it's like 74.3% of the kickoffs have been returned. Not for touchdowns, but have been returned.
Which is, I think, what the league wanted.
Yeah, what the league wanted, as opposed to less than 25% before they initiated the rule. So it means the thinking there being that if the kickoff is going to be returned, as opposed to standing no chance practically whatsoever before the rule changed, what is the price on a kickoff being returned for a touchdown this year? I don't know. I haven't seen that. I don't know if it is, but I think just the way that the rule is, I think it gives you a little bit of a hedge or an edge in a situation for something like that. And the third prop I want to show.
I already got my money out. I already got my money out of that prop with Devin Hester about 20 years ago.
Well, yeah, that was back when they were returning kickoffs, not kneeling.
That was the only one. I think that was against. I think that was against the Colts, and they ended up losing. No, that was against. He was on Chicago. It was against the Colts, and they ended up losing that game. But they were up. That decided a lot of props on the first play of the game, as did the. Remember the safety? That was always like and I couldn't understand why people loved playing the no on the safety and laying 1,300, because it happened 3 years in a row. So it's going to take 39 years for them to get that money back that they lost laying the 1,300 on the on the 3 times. But the other one that was decided on the first play of the game was when Peyton Manning was sacked on the first play, and that game played in the Meadowlands. I think it was against Seattle when he was with Denver.
Wasn't the ball snapped over his head? I think.
Yeah.
In a shotgun. There's a really, really good read out there, guys. If you don't read it, a guy named Scott Seidenberg, he publishes a daily publication called Better Day, BETTOR, Better Day, filled with lots of great handicapping information. And one of the things that they proposed in today's or yesterday's newsletter, one of the props that they liked the most, and I have to give them the credit, is they were interviewing Steve Fezzik, one of the sharpest minds, as Jim, Andy well know, in Las Vegas. And they were both decided they're going to come together on this one particular prop. And what it is which team will score the longest touchdown? Will Seattle score the longest touchdown? Yes, minus 150 is the prop. And the reason they came to the yes is that if you take a look at Njigba, Seattle's leading receiver, his longest reception total for the game is 27.5 yards. Shaheed, his longest reception in the game is 14.5 yards. And Walker, his longest run is 14.5 yards. Now you look at the other side of the equation, you look at New England, and you look at Booty and Diggs, the 2 wide receivers, their receptions are 17.5 yards, and Hollins is 14.5 yards. You just do the math. 27.5, 14.5, 14.5 is a whole lot more than 17.5 and 14.5 and 17.5. So there might be something to that. The longest score touchdown in the game, Seattle, and that's who those guys like Fezzik and the crew from Better Day. I just
So that's just head to head. There's no what the longest touchdown, the length of it is just which team will have the longest touchdown.
Yeah, well, in specific, will Seattle have the longest touchdown?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yes, and the prop is, will Seattle have the longest touchdown? Minus 150. You have to, yes or no.
I was hoping that someone would have thought that maybe somewhere out there listen to it. This is the 40th anniversary of Super Bowl 20 with Refrigerator Perry, which was the thing that really got props off to a start here when, the line in that game was Patriots by like 10 or Bears by 10 or 11. That was the 85 Bears. And they thought that their handle would be down because it was such a lopsided spread. And the history of the early Super Bowls was blowouts with large spreads. And so I forget who it was. Art Manteris had, I think, he just put a book out called Bookie, and he talked about that his book. I think he was he may have been at Caesars at the time. Put out a prop: will Refrigerator Perry score a touchdown? And I think the odds started and Jim, you might remember this. It was like 20-1, and I think it went all the way down to 4-1. So the books lost on that, but it was I called it a lost leader because it started a whole new industry with the props. So I was thinking this year. And I think we saw it in one of the playoff games where New England put in Mitch Williams, the 300-pound defensive lineman, as a blocker on a short yardage situation. So I was hoping someone might say, okay, it'll be Mitch, the Refrigerator 2.0 Williams, or Mitch, the Freezer Williams. Will he score a touchdown? And to see that, because I would have liked to see someone be that, especially because it's the 40th anniversary of the prop that launched props.
So did anybody put it up?
I haven't seen it yet. I keep looking. Okay.
Suggest it. If Jay were still running the Superbook, Andy, you could just walk up to him, and I'm sure he'd weigh that over. Weigh that. Yeah. But real good thought.
Maybe I'll do that later today.
All right, guys, that's going to put the wraps on our Super Bowl show here today. A lot of really good information shared by our cast and panel of experts. I'm going to wish everybody nothing but the best, nothing but winning tickets when you're watching the Super Bowl. Don't go crazy in the Super Bowl. It's only one game. Remember that. And remember, if this were one game and it were on the regular 16-game schedule, would you be betting it? That's the question you have to ask yourself. If you wouldn't be betting it, don't bet it. Just plain simple. If you would, go ahead and do it. Those are my words of advice on this Super Bowl game as far as wagering is concerned. Next week, we're going to get back and review the Super Bowl, talk about what did, what worked, what did, and what didn't. And we'll go over the suggestion that our viewer suggested to us. And we're going to tell you a little bit about who we are, where we came from, and how we do the things we do. That'll be on next week's edition of Mark Lawrence Against the Spread. So until then, once again, this is Mark Lawrence reminding you always to remember to bet with your head, not over it. And good luck.